I think it's really important that people know that because you've done this doesn't mean it's a lifelong commitment. You didn't get to put a wedding band on it, but you did
Right.
honor it. You showed up consistently. You care about what your end goals are, and the
Yeah.
relationship is, you're fully aware of what the relationship is offering both of you. Hey everyone, welcome to How You Go There. I'm Scott Montgomery, and I'm thrilled to kick off this series where we walk through the How You Go There workbook together.
And I'm your co-host, Linda Misegatis. We're diving into the real stories and steps behind personal and professional growth.
Before you can chart out a new path, you have to understand the path that brought you here. And this series is all about slowing down, reflecting, and getting curious about your experiences. That's how you go there. Well, welcome back, Linda Misegatis. Thank you for joining today on our next episode of How You Go There. I'm really
always
excited
good to see you, Scott Montgomery.
Thank you. How's the weather out there today in Colorado?
Actually, today it's raining, which is good because we desperately need the moisture because we have not really had a winter at all here. It's been in the 60s and 70s all winter long.
Shame on you.
I
Because
know,
here
I
in
know.
DC, it has been a treacherous winter.
I
Ice storms,
know.
snowstorms, cold weather, the whole thing. It's been terrible.
Yeah.
Things are going well. The weather's going to break here too, but I also have some exciting news I'd like to share for everyone.
Oh, I can't wait. Yes.
Yes, it appears that our podcast is of interest to the next generation, perhaps.
Oh.
My son, who is getting ready to go to college in the fall, has decided
Crazy.
to follow our handle without
is
being asked to do so.
amazing. Without being forced to like and follow, huh? Yeah.
That's right. And I was so excited to hear
love
that
it.
because it puts the pressure on us, Linda. We got the next generation
yes, it does.
listening
That's
now.
right. No, that's
Yes.
absolutely. But that's perfect because so
Mhm.
much of what we talk about is applicable to any stage of life. So whether you're just kind of starting out, if you're in the
Yeah.
middle or you're towards the end, it's all cyclical. So
That's
I love
right.
it.
The
Yeah.
foundations of leadership are really fun to talk with you about. And great segue into talking about today's script, if you will, and how we're moving
Yes.
right in from last week,
Yep.
the importance of relationships into how do we do that and examine them and exercise those into this week. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
really fun.
Well, and that's it's such an important topic, right? Which is why we gave 2 episodes to this
Mhm.
chapter on
Mhm.
relationships is because you can't just talk about it one time and be done. It takes a
No.
little bit more. And, last episode, we kind of talked about mapping the relationships that
Mhm.
shape your life and who's influencing you, who's supporting you. And
Yeah.
in this one, we're going to take it a little bit deeper about making genuine connections and kind of how you go about doing that. And like last episode, we'll walk you a little bit through some exercise, and that
Mhm.
way you get some practical guidance and advice from us as well. So,
Totally. Totally. I think it's, in order to start that out for me, I think it's really important to understand the difference between transactional relationships and genuine fostering worthwhile growth relationships, and how I think the latter can be a real influence on how, one, you develop yourself, and
mhm.
two, how you're going to find success in the future. The difference between transactional and genuine relationships, we can get into that pretty significantly in a little bit, but they're really important to know the difference.
Well, I think so too, because I think that many people were taught how to network, but no one was really taught how to connect, right?
Right.
And so I know
Beautiful.
even for me, like I really didn't even learn how to network, or maybe it was just because I didn't know. I wasn't comfortable in all of that. That's been on my growth journey. But even so, the networking aspect, it is one thing, but how do you actually make the connections, and how do you not make it so that it all feels performative, So
Right. God,
talk
such
a
good
little
words
bit
today.
about that because, you walk into a room and you're like, who can help me? Who should I impress? And that's
No.
really not what you should be doing, right? So talk about that.
No, well, a good metaphor for that. I had a guy in my office yesterday. We were talking about collaborating in a coaching platform together to promote leadership in his industry, in my industry, in other industries. And one of the things that came up that it relates really well to relationships and how you view them was the notion that he brought, initially saying, I've got to plant all these seeds for them to
Mm,
grow. And I
okay.
said, what if you excavate underneath so you have a garden to plant at all? And
Oh,
so,
look at you being all wise.
well, I don't know if it makes sense, but I thought it was a good metaphor to saying, hey, look,
I
you don't
like
plant
it.
seeds in relationships. You actually
Mhm.
have to foster a relationship so that you have a place to plant seeds.
Yes, absolutely.
Oftentimes, what I did in my career in relationships wasn't bring a skill set that attracted me. It was the intention and vulnerability that attracted me to someone who I wanted to then build a garden with. Not plant seeds in, but build the garden
Mhm.
with. Like, you
Yeah.
need me to cut that edge out. Well, I'll go learn how to do that in honor of the relationship. You need
Mhm.
me to till the soil in honor of our relationship. I'll go figure out how to do that. And that fosters the relationship, but it doesn't cost me anything because I've also learned how to till the garden.
Mm.
And it's
Really
not
good
just about
point.
planting the garden and watching the seeds grow, but being in
Mhm.
relationship matters in the whole big picture. So I don't know if
That
that
makes
helps
a lot of
with.
sense.
Yeah, does it?
Yeah. It does actually, because I think sometimes, we come in and we lead with our title. People say, "Hi, who are you?" "Oh, I'm Linda Misegatis. I'm the director of public sector business consulting, and I've worked in this industry for 30 years." Okay, well, who gives a shit, right? I mean,
Right,
how that's not making
right.
a connection, right? That's giving my resume, that's giving, and I haven't even really shared anything about me because you don't know who I am, why you
Totally.
care to have a conversation with me, right? So we're going to walk through an exercise on this,
Oh,
but
yeah.
talk about when we say, like, I've got my handy companion guide with me here today.
Oh,
So,
yes, I see that. I brought mine too, but
did
you
you
know
bring
what?
yours as well?
Yeah,
Oh,
of course.
good.
I
All
always,
right.
it's a
That
great
makes it so
reference for
much
our.
more helpful. Yes. So, can
Yes.
you talk about your elevator pitch? Because that's one of the things you discuss in the companion guide.
Well, so a couple times this has happened in my career, and I'll tell a story rather than give you
Yeah,
an
please do.
example of an elevator pitch because everyone's elevator pitch is
Is
different,
going to be different.
and
Very
an
good
elevator
point.
pitch doesn't always foster relationships, right?
So
But
true.
one of the things that's happened to me periodically that I've always tried on is
Mhm.
vulnerability and realism. And
Mm,
so
mhm.
I remember being at a meeting once where they put silverware out in front of me, and then they put this. I was at I don't remember a Chinese restaurant, I think it was, and
Yeah,
the way that they served me, I didn't know what to do with what they had,
right,
and
yeah.
everyone around the table's looking around, and I was the one that said, "I have no idea what to do with this stuff. Does anyone else?"
Right?
And it created vulnerability. It created the laughter.
Yeah.
It created the shoulders easing into
Mhm. Kinda
getting
break the
real.
tension. We don't all have to pretend like we know what they just put in front of us and how to do this, so,
And so
yeah.
I knew the one guy who was like, "Ugh," scoffed at it. "You don't know how to do that. You're not as elite as me," was not gonna be someone
Right.
I was getting in a relationship with.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. What a great way to kind of draw out who you wanna connect with. That's a great one.
Exactly. And so that
Yeah.
story, I hope, and that's again, just to, do my own horn here. I tell a lot of
Yes.
stories like that in this book, but the companion guide allows you to expose some vulnerability. It's not going to give you an
Yeah.
elevator pitch and it's not going to even frame one for you, but it's going to create you to assess your vulnerabilities and whether or not you'd be comfortable in saying, I don't know what to do with this. And my advice, and the reason we do this podcast is because I think everyone should be comfortable going, I don't know how to do this. Does anybody else? Instead
Yeah.
of
Mhm.
saying, "My name is Linda or Scott, and I work at X," and you should, now say your part. That doesn't
Right,
beget
yeah.
the vulnerability, right? And the
That's very
realism.
true. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between that transactional relationship, because one of the things you talk about is that transactional relationships have an expiration date, right? There is no, it's not, it's really, maybe it's a time, it's a place, it's not really necessarily a long term relationship. It might serve a purpose, and then you need some of those transactional relationships perhaps. But talk a little bit about when you're thinking about making the connection versus just the transaction.
May I use our example?
Yes, you may.
Well, and the reason I say that is because it's interesting to me that people call networking, and I love that in the way that you frame this today. Networking is not building relationships.
Mm,
Networking is painful for a lot of introverts and a lot of people who don't want to network the room because they see it as empty dialogue. They
Mhm.
don't have
Oh,
the
for
intellectual
sure.
capacity, and they're going through the puppeteer movements of what they were told to do to network.
Yes.
One of the
Yes.
reasons you and I connect is because we found each other on the wallflower side of a networking event and several
Yeah.
networking events. And then we started giggling about how we
Mhm.
found ourselves here and, oh, how are your kids doing? And oh my God, I have 2 kids. And then we started to become friends
Yeah.
at said networking event. And neither one of us knew each other's titles, perhaps, at that moment.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're both introverts, even though I come across as an extrovert because I expose the vulnerability up front as an extroverted play. Well, secondly, where that took us was to a partnership with UKG, and now here it's taken us to another place. But now we're
Yep.
doing this leadership development, moving the needle into something completely different. So while
Yeah.
you might have jumped off the train in what our
Yep.
partnership led us to, we're jumping on a different train now.
Exactly.
And the foundations of our relationship make what we're doing stronger and more vulnerability can be exposed. So more
Yeah.
people like our viewers and my son can benefit from viewing and watching and doing what we're demonstrating through
Yeah.
storytelling. With over a decade of experience, WorldGate LLC is your trusted partner in IT staffing and project management tailored for the public sector. We help government agencies and organizations navigate complex technology landscapes, implement effective workforce solutions, and build high-performing teams from strategic staffing to seamless systems integrations. We bring the experience and reliability to execute, empower, and exceed for our customers. Staffing? Check. Project management? Check. Public sector solutions? Check. Experience you can trust. Visit our website at www.worldgatellc.com today.
Well, and it's a valid point because it's that shift from genuine connection really starts with presence, not positioning, right? So if
Right.
I just, come
Yeah.
in and I'm posturing and positioning and I tell you my title and I tell you this, all I've done is it's performative, right? I've positioned, but there's no presence. And I that's something that I definitely had to learn and take
Totally.
away as well, right? Is to your point in getting vulnerable because I could talk about work all day long, but I wouldn't share anything about me or who I was. Like, so finding that little thing. Now, I will give a little bit of advice to any of our folks out there. There is a great book called The Art of Small Talk. And if you do struggle on how do I come in and create some presence, that book is actually really helpful because it
Good.
gives you little tidbits on ways to come in and introduce a conversation. So maybe you see somebody eating a piece of pie that you like. And so you're like, oh, I love blueberry pie or whatever. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
just little things. Now you've opened the door and they may walk in or they may close the door. And that's okay too, right? Because now that's like kind of like what you did in the Chinese restaurant. Now you knew who you wanted to connect with and you were like, oh, okay, maybe those aren't my people. So
Really important what you just said, right? Because otherwise the performative piece is really hard to connect to anyone with. And you and
yeah.
I can laugh with you on that because we never went there. Maybe we had
Mm-mm,
a meeting where we were trying to position what we could do in our business just in full disclosure, but not even really because we both ended up
mm-mm.
liking each other more than the business mattered.
100%.
And then the
Yeah.
business came.
Right.
So
Yes.
that's the
Yeah.
piece that I think leaders and emerging leaders and folks should recognize is that vulnerability, being authentic, and realism, those things really matter to the trust of the foundation. And I feel like people through those stories, and that's, I think, where my Achilles heel comes in because it's not all tactical, but my
No.
stories and storytelling can help people see and create the vulnerability. But the
Yeah.
companion guide does, to your point, now to get where you asked, does allow
Yes.
for people to fill out an exercise
Absolutely.
that helps one define what they're looking for in a partnership or a relationship.
Right.
And so the
Yes.
first half
Yes.
of our make a genuine connection, it in the exercise it says know who you are, important in making connections. It's a great practice, sound and genuine, authentic. Write 3 to 5 sentences introducing and summarizing who you are. And that doesn't mean I am Linda Misegatis and I'm, the UKG,
Yes.
end all be all. I am Linda Misegatis, mother of 3. I like blueberry pie.
Right. Exactly.
I
Yes.
also
Yes.
work at UKG, and there
Yeah.
was the vulnerability and the humanism before the tactical, right? And that's a collective.
Absolutely.
Well, as a result, the next part of this exercise is what would be a nice relationship to what you just recognized in the know
Right.
thyself portion of the exercise.
Okay, okay. Yeah,
And
no.
then you can fill that out, and now you can start to look for either the person that's standing up there blowing hard about who they are or the blueberry
Mhm.
pie person because you've named it in our exercise.
Well, and do you suggest that so I've created my elevator pitch. Who should I practice that on? Should I say it in the mirror? Because you do kinda wanna have it down, right? You want it to feel natural, but you and not scripted, but you also do kinda need to know, especially if you've not done this before and you're not comfortable, who's a good person to, like, practice, your spouse, your friend, like, in the mirror? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are that you just pointed out the incorrect verbiage of a header in my workbook because I don't believe what we're talking about to me is an elevator pitch.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think it's more of a know thyself pitch.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I like that better because an elevator pitch almost sounds like you're selling yourself, right? Which is not what you're intending. It really is, and maybe it's that introduction to who I am, that know thyself pitch. Yeah, I
Know
like that.
thyself, which
Mhm.
can be parlayed to an elevator pitch, and it gets a little sticky. So I understand how you're asking, but really this is about introducing and summarizing who you are
Okay.
and what you do. And that way
Yeah.
you know how to look for what would complement that in your views of a relationship.
Absolutely. And I think what I learned through that process too is that I didn't have to find people who were exactly like me. And by
Hmm.
doing that, that actually helped me, right? So now I look at my um, extended network of relationships with different people, and many of them are very different from me. We
Right?
don't necessarily have all types of things in common, but we do have some things in common that help ground us in that relationship that we're interested in sharing and being a part of what we can, and it's not about what we can do for each other, it's how we support one another, right?
Well, and it's also instead of what we have in common, it's what we look for to complement.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, because that's
So
a really good point. Yeah.
I mean, you and I complement each other really well. You're more details oriented. I'm more
Mhm.
visionary. You can
Yeah.
also, once you know thyself in unpacking what we've labeled an elevator pitch for thyself, you're not giving it in an elevator. Once you understand yourself, like I understand myself to be a vulnerable introvert who does well in sales and marketing, but I'm a visionary. So
Right.
I don't want to try and be in a relationship with someone just like me necessarily, depending on what my goals
Yeah.
are, and we're gonna go
It's
over those
true.
in another
Yeah.
but I wanna look for someone who's detail-oriented, who's maybe more
Mhm.
aware of their introversion, who plays nicely off of my vulnerable extroversion approach, you know?
Yes,
And
yeah.
so, that's where I think this is really gonna ground someone in using our companion guide here. My companion guide allows you to open yourself up and fill in the blanks
Right.
and start to pay attention tactically, because this
Right.
sounds like a lot, but you can really ground it quickly.
You can, and what I like about it is so if you follow the episode from last week, we talked about the relationship mapping, right? And so if you do the relationship mapping, that actually then helps you in that know thyself. Because if you look at the relationships, it kind of gives you a little bit of insight into yourself, right? Because we talked
Right,
about your
right.
mentors and your future mentors, like who are my
Mhm,
past one, who are my future ones, and thinking about that. And then we talked a little bit about even the kite and the string and thinking
mhm.
about, okay, to your point, who complements, who helps in those situations. Now, if you review those things, that kind of helps you as you think about what is my know thyself pitch as we're
Right,
going to
the
rename
elevator
this.
pitch. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And then asking the questions that matter. And so which is the second part of that exercise is really to go into that. And it's, to ask what kind of questions could you ask ahead of time? And that's where writing
mhm.
them down just makes you feel more comfortable. And you write them in the book. But honestly, if you just even carry, my husband, Jim, he always had this little notebook right within his pocket. It's a great way because then if you're walking into a room for a particular event, maybe jot down 5 questions. And then as you're scanning the room and thinking about who you want to go and talk to, you kind of have them there. So if you're feeling nervous
Brilliant.
or uncomfortable, it's just a great little thing to have with you. So,
Well, I mean, you bring up a very valid point and another opportunity for me to do a shameless plug of
yeah.
www.howyougothere.com. We sell How You Get Go There notebooks. And that's exactly
Very
what
good
their
point. Yeah, exactly. Just
value
kinda
add can be.
having those things with you. Yeah. It's your
Yeah, and
companion guide to your companion guide, so
exactly. It's your refresher, it's your condensed version of some of these exercises.
yeah.
The real takeaway of these exercises for me is what we're talking about can be
Right.
heard and it can be executed. I think making it a tactical procedure helps you know
Yeah.
thyself better and helps you focus on what to look for. So there's no right
Right.
or wrong answer in that. It's just a moment in time, and as it evolves, this is what I think this companion guide does really well. It allows you to, how does the relationship matter? What am I about? How do I say who I am? And then how do I say what I'm looking for against
Right.
the exercise? Is it a spouse? Is it a coworker? Is it a business partner? Is it an employee?
All valid points. Well, and we're gonna talk about this in a future episode on communication, but I think it's important to kinda think about if we're trying to help in how to build those genuine connections, you want to make sure that you're maybe leading with curiosity and not that whole, "I'm just asking you a question, but I don't really care what the answer is because I'm just waiting to tell you my response to the question I just asked you,
Mhm.
because I'm more
Uh,
interested in telling you about
Networking.
myself than I am about hearing," right?
O
And
old school
so,
networking. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah, so talk a little bit about, like, if someone is listening and they're thinking to themselves, "Okay, I wanna build deeper connections. How do I start? Like, what's a good way for me to get into that?"
Well, once you understand what it is you're looking for using the companion guide or the things that we've chatted about in the way that you can take them in, I think
Yeah.
it's important to go to a place you can then apply them or look for
Okay.
those places where those needs are going to be met. So if you end up looking for a new job and you go to a job fair, you will
Mhm.
be equipped with what it is you know you're looking for in partnership as an employee. And
Okay,
so
okay.
you go to the job fair, you bring your notes, you bring your companion guide, you bring them in your notebook, you bring them sealed in your mind, but you bring that to the meeting and then you look for that in how people are responding to
Yeah,
you
okay,
and to the
okay.
room, right? So you lead with a little curiosity, who in here is interested in doing that? And then secondly, who in here is saying what I'm looking for?
Okay, mhm.
How do they complement what I know I'm looking for? And again, how do you know what you're looking for? It's in the companion guide because you've done the work. You've know thyself, you've done the elevator pitch, you've
Right.
complemented what the issue is. If we're using the example of looking for a job, then you know how you want that employer to appear for you.
Okay, that
And
makes
so
sense,
listen more
yeah.
intently, right? Follow up with intention. If you find them,
Mhm.
don't let them go, play it out. And lastly, if
Right.
they hire you, show up consistently. Honor the opportunity, which is what you and I've
Yeah,
done too. Again, back to
absolutely.
everyday relationships that I'm in business, you honor that. I have client meetings this Thursday coming
Mhm.
up this week it's been a couple weeks. We need to check in.
Right, yes,
So
exactly.
check ins and consistent follow up against the mission and goal, against the ideas that complement knowing thyself on the train that's taking you to X. And we are on many trains, all of us. So if we decide to jump off a train, it doesn't mean you have to throw away the relationship because maybe
Right.
you'll bring one of the passengers over to the new train, which is what you and I did. I think it's really important that people know that because you've done this doesn't mean it's a lifelong commitment. You didn't get to put a wedding band on it, but you did
Right.
honor it. You showed up consistently. You care about what your end goals are, and the
Yeah.
relationship is, you're fully aware of what the relationship is offering both of you.
And I think that's really important, and I think kind of what I'm hearing you say is and I know this has been true in my own professional journey, is that my strongest professional relationships really started with an honest communication. It wasn't about a pitch, it wasn't, "What can you do for me?" It was just kind of like,
Blueberry
asking some
pie.
questions, genuine curiosity, right?
Yeah.
Wondering what and then to your point, look where it's led. With the relationship you and I have today, some of our podcast guests who came on from the past, some of those started through that,
Yeah.
business opportunities that present
Sure.
themselves, but none of that was the starting point when I started with the "Hello, how are you?" kinda thing. It was never with the intention of, "What were you gonna do for me and how was I gonna get here?" Right? It was, "Let's make a connection and see where that goes."
See where that goes. And also don't for our listeners, it is okay that Linda, you and I met because we were at the same trade show and we were
Yes.
trying to do
Yeah.
business things. But there were so many people in that room that I will never talk to again because they didn't create vulnerability or interest,
Right.
and they didn't
Yes.
complement how we do things. You and I
Very
complement.
true.
And
Yeah.
then I do what I can to honor that by going to the nth degree. So that's the
Mhm.
consistency part. And I know
Right.
that's reciprocated. You do the
Yeah.
same thing. And when that starts to unfold, that's okay.
Well, and one of the other exercises, we're not gonna walk through it, but I just wanna draw everybody's attention to in the companion guide is the relationship action plan.
Oh, wait, thank you so much. I'll hold
Yeah.
up the cover and you
Yes,
hold
would you
up.
hold up and I'll
That would
hold
be,
up the
oh, look at
workbook with the
that.
work page. Look at that.
Shameless
So
plugs.
I know. Yes, absolutely.
I love them.
But
Thank you.
as but in that relationship action plan, you talk about, listing 1 or 2 people that you're interested in exploring professional relationship with and why, determining the steps you need to take, identifying who you will or how you will communicate with the purpose, and then developing an action plan. So this is a really great exercise,
Hmm.
especially if you're just starting new, and if you're even thinking about those future mentors that you want to develop.
Sure.
Or this is a great um, worksheet to use for any type of relationship that you're thinking
100%.
about, and can help you. Maybe you're looking for a coach, maybe you're looking for a mentor, and you and I are going to get into that in future chapters when we
Yeah.
talk about that more. This will be a great worksheet to even
Hmm.
reference back to as you're thinking about it. So,
You're very kind to say that about the workbook. And I also know that you genuinely, like I feel like paying this forward through storytelling and through this medium is a medium? Yeah, this
medium, yeah,
podcast
yeah, yeah.
is really important for whoever and however it gets digested. So I appreciate how you're framing that around the companion guide specifically today, because there is a lot of good exercises in there. But knowing that relationships have this isn't wedding band, get married relationship stuff. This is serving a
Right.
purpose makes it okay. Being
Yep.
authentic and consistent and recognizing it could have a shelf life all makes people's lives better. I know many
Yes.
people who think, I've got to tell you, I'm the most important person in the room because here are my credentials. And if you can't serve me, I'm done with you. And that life
Mhm.
is just not as rich. I know this because I've witnessed it.
Yes, it is very true, and I think that is a really valid point. There's a time and a place for credentials, right?
Right.
And in relationship building, credentials aren't really the
Where it's at.
yeah, yeah, I think
One of
that's
the
a
things,
really
and I'll leave
valid
you with
point.
this, and I know it's unrelated to the companion guide and everything else, but one of the things I've always told the new hire training folks that come into my organization to
Yeah.
sell, I literally have said to them on more than one occasion, sure, try once, sure, try twice, sure, try a third time. That's a good
Mhm,
benchmark. All right, they don't want to buy. Got it. But
mhm.
also, if you don't see it in their eyes on the second time that they're actually engaged, don't
Yep.
bother going back.
It's very true, and
So you
because
feel it.
people
You can
buy
feel
from
it.
people. Yes, so
Yes.
if you've not made a connection, they're not gonna buy from you no matter how much you try to sell.
So if you're in a sales cycle and you're trying to sell something, yes, you can see it. And also there's a somatic response that comes from relating to someone.
Yeah.
So when you were eating the apple pie in the conference room version of our
Yeah, it was
story,
blueberry, but okay.
okay, when you were eating the blueberry pie, exactly. I felt like that was a really good connection that we had.
Yeah.
And I wanted to unpack more. And you were more vulnerable. Then I became more vulnerable. Then I was more vulnerable and you
Yes.
matched it. And so that dance goes on until it doesn't. But it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a bad thing if it doesn't. That's the jump off the train part that I want to make sure people are clear on, because it can serve a purpose, it can be authentic, and it can end.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I like it. Well, and so what I would say is that, your book gives the framework, right? That's
Yeah.
kind of the stories, and that's a framework. The companion guide gives you the exercises. So now they're
Hmm.
your stories. It's not about, you provided the framework. Now
Right.
the companion guide is giving you the
Totally.
exercises. And this podcast is to bring those conversations to life so we can help provide you with some practical, hands-on, here's how we did it. We're not telling you to do what we did. We're just telling you what we did. So maybe you can incorporate that into your own journey and what you're trying to do.
Until we finally got there. That's exactly what we're
We
doing. That's a
did.
beautiful summary.
I
I can't
think
wait
so
to do more of
too.
this and this and this. Right?
Yes, me either. I know
We need
it's
to
so
get in
much
front of a room
fun.
full of people next. I think it'd be fun to do
Yes,
that
we
again.
do.
We haven't
I
done that
think
in about a
so.
year.
We haven't, and I had so much fun when we did it last time. So
Me too.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
that'll be really good. Well, so I think if I left our listeners with like the big takeaway from this particular episode, it would be maybe this week, don't network. Reach out to one person just to connect. No ask, no agenda, just intention. Because how you go there is who you go there with and
Mhm.
how consistently you show up along the way, right?
Beautiful. So true.
Wow. Yeah.
It would make a
No.
lasting impression on your perception of yourself too, and it will
Yeah.
also help you recognize that authenticity and vulnerability will take you very far, and I would
Yeah.
believe in my history further than any piece of paper would.
Well, thank you, my friend. And I can't wait to come back next episode and talk about habits because they are not something I'm very good at. So,
I know. Well, great to see you. Me neither. Great to see you.
you
Have a
too.
great week. We'll see you next week.
All right. Sounds good.